Hi friends, myself Subrata Mukherjee and you are watching my channel Dr. Subrata Mukherjee Distance Learning in Commerce. Today I am going to discuss another problem on standard costing. This is lecture number 10 on the topic standard costing and lecture number 3 on labor variance analysis. A gang of workers normally consists of 30 men, 15 women and 10 boys. They are paid at standard rates per hour as under: men rupees 0.80, women rupees 0.60, boys rupees 0.40. In a normal working week of 40 hours, the gang is expected to produce 2000 units of output. During the week ended 31st December 2014, the gang consisted of 40 men, 10 women, and 5 boys. The actual wages paid were at the rate rupees 0.70, rupees 0.65, and rupees 0.30 respectively. 4 hours were lost due to abnormal idle time and 1,600 units were produced. Compute labor cost variances. First of all, let us present the data in the following manner. So here I am writing standard in hours and rate. And here I am writing actuals, hours and rate. Men, women, and boys. There are three categories of workers. Now, in a week, one man can work for 40 hours. So there are 30 men workers. So total hours of men was 1,200. Then there are 15 women, so 600 hours, and there are 10 boys, so 400 hours. Let me show you here. So a gang of workers normally consists of 30 men, 15 women, and 10 boys. So this is standard. It is expected that there will be 13 men, 15 women, and 10 boys. And in a normal working week, there are 40 hours in a week. So total men hours is 1,200, women 600, and for boys 400. And they are paid at the rate of, this is rupees per hour. So men are paid at the rate of rupees 0.80, women 0.60, and boys 0.40. So 80 paise, 60 paise, and 40 paise. So total standard hours is 2,200 and expected output is 2,000 unit. It is given that it is expected to produce 2,000 units of output during a week. So this way I have presented the data which is regarding the standard hours. Now let us put the data for actuals. So actually there were 40 men. So they have produced 1,600 hours. There are 10 women. So 400 hours were produced. And there were 5 boys. So 200 hours for boys. So actual hours was 2,200. So which is same. But actual output is 1,600 units. Now, what is the actual rate per hour? Actual rate per hour of men is 70 paise, of women is 65 paise, and for boys it is 30 paise. So I have presented the data which is given in the question in the following table. Now I have to calculate the different parameters which are used for calculating the labor cost variances. So the first parameter is standard hours, that is SH. So this is standard hours for actual output. So this for actual output, this word is very important. So what is the standard hours for men? So 1200 is the standard men hours divided by 2000 units. This is the standard units which is expected to be produced, but actually 1600 units were produced. So standard hours for actual output. So this is 1200. I have taken it from here. 2000 is the actual the standard output which is expected to be produced, and 1600 is the actual output. I have taken it from here. So the standard hour for men is 960 hours. Now, what is the standard hour for women? So this will be 600. This is the standard hours for or expected hours of women is 600. Now 600 hours will be used for production of 2000 units. It is expected that if 600 hours of women can produce 2000 units, then how many hours is required for producing 1600 units? So this is standard hours for actual output, and this will be 480 hours. And for boys, standard hour of boys is 400 divided by 2000 multiplied with 1600. So 400 is the standard hours for 2000 units of production. Then for 1600 units of production, it is required 320 hours of boys. So the first parameter, that is standard hour, I have written here, and I have calculated for men, women, and boys. The second parameter is regarding the actual rate, the rate per hour. This is the standard rate, SR. This is the second parameter. I'm not going to write here, and I am writing it here as standard rate. SR means standard rate. The third parameter is actual hours, AH. That is actual hours paid. Actual hours paid. This is the third parameter. The fourth parameter is the actual rate, AR. This is actual rate per hour. So the first parameter is SH, that is standard hour. Second parameter is standard rate, the standard rate per hour. Then third parameter is actual hours paid, AH. Fourth parameter is actual hour or actual rate per hour. So it is already written in the table. The fifth parameter is actual hours worked. So fifth parameter is actual hours worked, AHW, actual hours worked. So for men, this is 1600 hours. So actual hours paid is 1600 hours. It is written from the table. And how many hours were lost? So there were 40 workers, and each worker has lost 4 hours during a week. So 40 workers multiplied with 4. So 1600 minus 160 is 1440 hours. So actual hours worked for men is 1440 hours. Then for women, actual hours paid for is 400, and there were 10 women. So 400 minus 10 women, multiply this with 4 is 400, minus 40 is 360 hours. So actual hours work for women is 360 hours, and for boys it will be 200. So actual hours for boys were 200 hours, and 200 minus, there were 5 boys, Each boy lost 4 hours during a week. So 200 minus 20 is 180 hours. The sixth parameter is the idle time. So idle time for men, it is 160 hours. For women, it is 40 hours. And for boys, this is 20 hours. Wherefrom I have taken 40, multiply this with 4, you will get 160. 10 multiply with 4, you will get 40. And 5 boys multiplied with 4 hours, this will be 20 hours. So idle time for men 160, women 40 hours, and boys 20 hours. And the seventh parameter is RSH. This is revised standard hours for actual input. Revised standard hours for actual input. For men, this will be 1,200. Divide this with 2,200 and multiply this with 1,980. So 1,200 is the standard man hours during a week, 1,200. Divide this with 2,200 and multiply this with actual hours worked. So total actual hours worked was 1,980. Total hours, actual hours worked is 1,980. So revised standard hour for actual input is 1,980. You are allocating this actual hours worked as per the standard hours. 1,980 is the actual hours worked by the gang, and 1,200 is the standard hours of men. Divide this with 2,200, which is the total standard hour of the gang. So actual hours worked is to be allocated as per the standard. So men 1,200 by 2,200, multiply this with 1980, you will get 1,080 hours. Then for women, this is very important. This will be 600. So 600 hours, standard hours was there for a week, for 7 days or for a week. The standard hours for women was 600. Divide this with 2,200 and multiply this with 1,980 and you will get 540 hours. So revised standard hours, this way I have calculated for men and women. And what is the revised standard hours for boys? This will be 400 divided by 2,200 and multiply this with 1,980 and you will get 360 hours. So this way I have calculated all the 7 parameters which are required for calculating the labor cost variances. For recapitulation, let us see. First, I have calculated the standard hours for actual output. Then, the standard rate is given in the table. Actual hours paid, that is AH, I have written here in the table. AR is the actual hour, that is the rate per hour. Then fifth parameter is actual hours worked, that is actual hours paid minus the idle time. And total actual hours is 1,980. Idle time is the sixth parameter, and seventh parameter is the revised standard hours for actual input. This words is very important for your understanding. For actual input, that is the actual input hours, that is the actual hours worked by the gang. You have to allocate these hours as per the standard. So 1,200 by 2,200 and multiply this factor with 1980. So this way I have calculated all the parameters. Now let us calculate all the variances of labor. So here I am calculating the labor cost variances. The first one is labor cost variance. This is calculated by the formula SH multiply with SR minus AH into AR. So for men, this is 960. Multiply this with 0.80 minus 1600. Multiply this with 0.7. So 768 minus 1120. You will get 352 adverse. For women, this will be standard hours you have calculated for women is 480. So I am just taking the parameters that you have calculated just now. Multiply this with standard rate, then subtract actual hour, multiply this with actual rate. So all these figures you will find in the working. So 288 minus 260 is 28 favorable. Because your standard hour cost is more than the actuals, so it is favorable. And for boys, this will be 320. Multiply this with 40 paise, 200, and the actual rate is 30 paise. So 128 minus 60 is 68 favorable. So total labor cost variance is 256 adverse. Before proceeding to labor rate variance, let us explain this uh, labor cost variance. So labor cost variance is divided into two parameters, labor rate variance and labor efficiency variance, and the idle time variance. And labor efficiency variance is subdivided as labor mix variance and labor yield variance or labor sub-efficiency variance. So labor cost variance, I have calculated 256 adverse. Now, what about the labor rate variance? So labor rate variance. So labor rate variance is calculated to the following formula: SR minus AR, multiply this with AH. Standard rate minus actual rate multiplied with actual hours paid, AH. So for men, this is 80 paise minus 70 paise. Multiply this with 1600 and you will get 160 favorable. For women, this is 60 paise minus 65. Multiply this with 400 and you will get 20 adverse. And for boys, this is 40 paise minus 30 paise. Multiply this with 200 and you will get rupees 20 favorable. So total labor cost, labor rate variance is 160 favorable. Now I am writing this in this table. Labor rate variance is 160 favorable. Now come to idle time variance. This is the third calculation that I am going to do. Idle time variance. So idle time variance is simply idle time, multiply this with standard rate. So for men, 160 hours, multiply this with 80 paise and you will get 120 adverse. Woman, this is 40 hours, multiply this with 60 paise and you will get 24 adverse. And because idle time variance is always adverse, obviously. And for boys, this is 20 hours, multiply this with 0.40 and you will get rupees 8 adverse. So 160 adverse is the labor or idle time variance. So in idle time variance, I am writing 160 adverse. Now I'm going to calculate the labor efficiency variance. So once you calculate the parameters, it will be very easy to find these variances. So labor efficiency variance is standard hours SH minus AHW, that is actual hours worked, multiply this with standard rate. Now for men, standard hour I have calculated as 960. Actual hours worked is 1440. In the workings, you can see standard hour of men is 960 and actual hours worked is 1440. Multiply this with 80 paise and you will get sum of 384 adverse. 480, the difference of 960 and 1440 is 480. Multiply this with 0.80. Then for women, this is standard hour is 480. You can see in the working 480 is the standard hour of women and the actual hours worked of women is 360. So 480 minus 360, multiply this with 0.60 and we'll get 72 favorable. This is the difference of 480 and 360 is 120 and multiply this with 0.60 and you will get 72 favorable. And for boys, this is 320 is the standard hour of boys. Actual hours work is 180. Multiply this with 0.40 and you will get 56 favorable. 140, multiply this with 0.40. So total labor efficiency variance is 256 adverse. So you can see in this table, labor cost variance we have calculated 256 adverse. Labor rate variance is 160 favorable. Idle time variance is 160 adverse and labor efficiency variance is 256 adverse. So if you add up these three, you will get 256 adverse. Now we will calculate labor mix variance and labor yield variance or sub-efficiency variance. Labor mix variance. It is calculated from the following formula. RSI, that is revised standard hours minus actual hours worked. Multiply this with SR. So for men, this is revised standard hours. So revised standard hours we have calculated 1080. So this is 1080 minus 1440. Multiply this with 0.80 and you will get 288 adverse. 360. This is the difference of 1080 and 1440 is 360. Multiply this with 80 paise. Then woman, revised standard hour of woman is 540. You can see in the working 540 and for boys is 360. So 540 minus 360 is the actual hours worked. Multiply this with 0.60 and you will get 108 favorable. This is 180 multiplied with 0.60. And for boys, this will be 360 minus 180 into 0.40 and you will get 72 favorable. So if you add up these three and this is 180 multiplied with 0.40, 108 adverse. So labor mix variance is 108 adverse. And the last one is labor yield variance or labor sub-efficiency variance. and it is calculated as the difference of standard hour and revised standard hour, and multiply this factor with standard rate. SH minus RSH into SR. So for men, standard hour is 960 minus 1080. Multiply this with 0.80 and we'll get 96 adverse. Woman, this will 480 minus 540. Multiply this with 0.60 and you will get 36 adverse. And boys, this is 320 minus 360. Multiply this with 0.40 and we'll get 16 adverse. So you will get a total of 148 adverse. So if you add up the two subvariances, that is labor yield variance and the labor mix variance, you will get a total of 256 adverse, which is equal to labor efficiency variance. So labor efficiency variance was 256, 108 is the labor mix variance, and 148 adverse is the labor yield variance. So I hope all of you have recorded the question with solution in your notebook and you have understood it properly. In spite of this, if you have any doubt regarding the understanding of the solution, feel free to communicate with me through email and the WhatsApp number given in the description box. Thank you. Thanks for watching the lecture.